All right, let's jump into another deep dive. This time we're taking a look at 8 signs she wants you to touch her. Most men miss.
Intriguing title.
Definitely attention grabbing, right?
Yeah.
So we'll break down the advice, see if it holds water, and, explore what it tells us about how men and women communicate without actually,
The nonverbal cues, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And the article starts off strong, claiming women often hint at wanting to be touched through, wait for it, compliments.
Compliments, huh?
Yeah, and not just any compliment. The article specifically points to compliments about a man's physique.
Oh,
Like they use the example, wow, you got really strong arms.
Interesting.
And it suggests that maybe, just maybe, there's more to it than a simple observation.
Like a hidden meaning.
Right. So maybe it's not so much about deciphering a secret code, but more about being tuned into a different frequency.
Picking up on those subtle hints, those underlying messages.
Exactly. And isn't there a psychological principle that kind of supports this? Like the halo effect, where we connect good traits with physical attractiveness.
You're absolutely right. The halo effect could definitely be playing a part here.
It makes you wonder, right?
It does. When you compliment someone's physical attributes, you're basically creating this positive association, which can then potentially lead to more attraction.
That makes sense.
Plus, there's this whole reinforcement aspect. If a woman gives a compliment and gets a good response, it might encourage even more interaction, maybe even leading to physical touch.
Oh, like a feedback loop.
Exactly, a positive feedback loop where compliments and responses just build on each other.
That's really interesting. But the article doesn't stop there. It goes on to talk about the significance of a woman inviting a man to her home.
Okay, yeah.
And it even calls a woman's home her personal sanctuary,
Oh, wow.
implying that extending that invitation is a pretty big deal.
I see what you mean. It definitely suggests a certain level of trust and comfort. Yeah, like inviting someone into your personal space, especially your home, can be seen as a step towards a deeper connection, both emotionally and physically. But of course, we can't forget about cultural factors. In some cultures, it might be just common courtesy,
Oh, that's true. Good point.
not necessarily loaded with romantic implications.
Right, so many layers to consider.
Definitely.
It's amazing how one simple gesture can have so many possible meanings.
No, it really is.
It reminds me of how touch itself can be interpreted in so many different ways.
Oh, absolutely.
And speaking of touch, the article dives into that whole concept of breaking the touch barrier.
The touch barrier, huh? Interesting.
Yeah, it's all about those seemingly insignificant touches. A brush of the hand, a touch on the arm while laughing.
Those little moments.
Exactly. And the article suggests these might be ways for a woman to test the waters, see how a man reacts, how comfortable he is with physical contact.
So it's like dipping a toe in the pool before jumping in.
Yeah, testing the temperature. But I guess I'm curious though, isn't there also a biological side to touch? Like the release of oxytocin or something?
You're spot on. Physical touch can actually trigger the release of oxytocin, often called the cuddle hormone or the bonding hormone.
Oh, so it's a real thing.
It is, and it can lead to feelings of connection, trust, even intimacy.
Wow. So even those quick, fleeting touches can really affect us.
Exactly. They can have a powerful impact on our brains and how connected we feel to another person.
It's amazing how our bodies work, isn't it?
Yeah.
But can we really be that strategic with touch? Like, is it a conscious decision or more instinctive?
That's a great question. It's likely a mix of both, you know. Sometimes we consciously choose to touch someone, like to emphasize a point or offer comfort.
Yeah.
But then there's also our subconscious, guiding our movements and reactions without us even realizing it.
So it's not just about mastering techniques,
Right.
but understanding those deeper impulses.
It's a fascinating interplay.
It is. Yeah. And the article doesn't just stop at simple touches. It delves into body language, leaning in, open posture, even which way someone's feet are pointing.
Body language is a whole other world, isn't it?
It really is.
It's fascinating because it's often subconscious,
Yeah.
which means it can give us more genuine insights into someone's feelings compared to what they're actually saying.
Oh, interesting.
For example, someone leaning in during a conversation might be showing they're interested and engaged,
Oh, I see.
while crossed arms could signal discomfort or wanting to create distance.
So our bodies are speaking a language of their own,
Exactly.
revealing things our words might be hiding.
You got it.
But I imagine interpreting body language can be tricky.
Oh, absolutely. It's really important to consider the context of the interaction.
Right.
Someone might cross their arms because they're cold, not because they're emotionally closed off.
Good point.
And cultural differences play a huge role in how we interpret and express these nonverbal cues.
It's true. What might be friendly in one culture could be totally different in another.
Exactly. So much to consider.
It seems like you need a combination of awareness, sensitivity, and maybe a little bit of intuition to really understand nonverbal communication.
I couldn't agree more. It's about being attuned to those subtle cues, but also realizing there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right. It's different for everyone.
Exactly. Every interaction is unique, and the meaning behind a gesture can change depending on the people involved and the situation itself.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, the article also brings up those accidental bumps.
Accidental bumps.
Yeah, suggesting they might not be so accidental after all.
Interesting.
Like maybe they're actually intentional attempts to initiate physical contact.
Oh, I see.
It goes back to that playful touch, testing boundaries, creating a connection.
Right.
But as we talked about before, it's so important to be sure those touches are welcome and reciprocated.
Absolutely. You don't want to make things awkward.
Exactly. Otherwise, it could come across as disrespectful.
It's about finding that balance between playful exploration and respecting personal boundaries.
A delicate dance, for sure. Speaking of which, I actually have a story about a time I completely misread an accidental bump.
Oh, do tell.
Well, let's just say it involved a crowded concert, a lot of awkward apologies, and a bruised ego.
Oh, no.
But it was a valuable lesson about paying attention to both verbal and nonverbal cues.
I think we've all been there.
Right.
It's a constant learning process.
It really is.
The more we understand these subtle dynamics, the better we can navigate them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of navigating dynamics, the article then dives into what it means when a woman leans towards a man during a conversation.
Okay, what's the take on that?
It suggests it might be more than just trying to hear better.
More than that, huh?
It's a sign of trust, an invitation even.
Oh, that's interesting.
And physical proximity definitely plays a part in building intimacy and connection.
Right, like when you lean in, you're literally closing the distance, creating a shared space.
Yeah.
And that can foster a sense of vulnerability and trust, potentially deepening the connection.
It's like physically leaning in emotionally, showing you're engaged and interested.
It's a powerful nonverbal cue.
Why, I'd imagine there are cultural differences to consider here too, right?
Oh, absolutely. The concept of personal space is very different across culture.
Right. What's comfortable in one place might be intrusive in another.
Exactly. So being mindful of those cultural nuances is really important.
It seems like awareness and sensitivity are key to understanding all these nonverbal signals.
For sure.
But the article takes it even further, connecting tactile humor, those playful nudges or taps, to how comfortable and playful people are in a potential romantic connection.
Okay, I'm curious about this.
So it's like, humor can be a really strong way to connect with someone.
Yeah.
When you laugh together, you create a shared experience, and that builds closeness.
It does.
And adding physical touch to humor can amplify those feelings, create a sense of playfulness and shared intimacy.
Oh, that makes sense.
So like a well-timed playful tap on the arm could be a good sign,
A sign that things are going well.
especially when it comes with shared laughter and a genuine connection.
It could be, but again, context is key.
Right.
It's about observing the whole dynamic and making sure both people are comfortable and enjoying the interaction.
Consent and mutual enjoyment should always be the guiding principles,
Absolutely.
because a nudge that's met with a flinch is probably not a sign of budding romance.
Definitely not a good sign.
But a nudge that's returned with a playful smile, that could be the spark.
It's those little moments of connection, both verbal and nonverbal, that can lay the groundwork for something special.
Right.
And as the article highlights, paying attention to those moments can give us valuable insights into the other person's feelings and intentions.
That leads us to the article's last point, watching how a woman reacts to a man's physical advances.
Okay, interesting.
It's all about reading those subtle cues and adjusting your behavior accordingly. Seems like a crucial skill, not just for dating, but for any social interaction, really.
I agree. Being attuned to nonverbal cues can help us navigate social situations more effectively and avoid misunderstandings.
Yeah.
Like, if someone pulls back when you initiate physical contact, it's a clear signal to respect their boundaries and back off.
Definitely.
On the flip side, if they lean in or reciprocate the touch, it might be a sign they're open to further interaction.
It's a constant back and forth, sending and receiving signals, adjusting based on the other person's response.
Exactly. A constant dance of cues and responses happening all the time, whether we realize it or not.
Well, we've definitely covered a lot of ground so far, from compliments and touch barriers to body language and the nuances of playful interactions.
It's been a whirlwind tour of nonverbal communication.
It has. And we've explored some fascinating concepts and maybe even challenged some of our own ideas about attraction and communication.
It's always good to re-examine our assumptions.
Right. And we've just scratched the surface. There's still so much to unpack when it comes to human interaction and how we connect with each other. Stay tuned, because in the next part of our deep dive, we're going even deeper into the world of nonverbal communication,
Sounds good.
exploring the complexities of interpreting signals and navigating those awkward, exhilarating moments of connection.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
You know, as we're talking about all this, it's interesting to think that while the article focuses on heterosexual dynamics, these nonverbal communication principles probably apply to a lot more than just that.
It's a good point. It'd be kind of narrow-minded to assume these signs are universal.
Exactly. Context is key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even though the article is written from a male perspective, I think a lot of the insights could be valuable for anyone who wants to understand those unspoken signals.
Yeah, regardless of gender or who they're attracted to.
It's all about fine-tuning that awareness, right? And speaking of which, the article digs deeper into types of touch, like those accidental bumps or playful nudges we mentioned earlier.
Right, those subtle ways to initiate contact and see how the other person reacts.
It's like a little, "Are you feeling this too?" dance played out through touch.
Yeah, testing the waters, checking for a mutual comfort level.
But like we said before, it's so important to make sure those touches are welcome and reciprocated.
Definitely, you don't want to misinterpret a friendly nudge as something more and make things awkward.
Exactly. Consent and mutual enjoyment are super important.
Absolutely.
Which leads us to the article's focus on observing how a woman reacts to a man's advances.
Right, reading those subtle cues and adjusting accordingly.
Yeah, paying attention to those nonverbal cues is key to navigating those interactions successfully.
For sure, if someone seems uncomfortable or pulls away when touch is initiated, that's a clear sign to respect their boundaries and back off.
Absolutely. Attentiveness and respect are crucial. And while the article talks about men reading a woman's signals, I think this is a valuable skill for anyone in any kind of interaction. Being sensitive to other people's comfort levels is essential for any healthy relationship, romantic or not.
You know, it's like being a good dance partner, following the lead, being aware of the other person's movements, and making sure everyone's having a good time.
That's a great analogy. It's not about dominating the dance floor, it's about moving together in sync.
Exactly, respecting each other's space and creating a harmonious experience.
So far in our deep dive, we've uncovered some pretty interesting insights into the potential signs of attraction and the role of touch in building connections.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
But as we've discussed, it's so important to consider the context, individual differences, and cultural norms that influence these interactions.
Absolutely. And above all, prioritizing consent, respect, and open communication is key.
Right. Nonverbal cues can give us clues, but they're not always foolproof.
Sometimes the most direct way to know if someone is interested in physical contact is to just ask.
Clear, direct communication can't go wrong with that. We've covered a lot of ground in this exploration of nonverbal communication and attraction. What are your final thoughts on the article and its key takeaways?
I think the article brings up some really thought-provoking points about nonverbal communication and how we express and perceive interest, particularly in the context of attraction. But it's important to remember that these are just potential indicators, not guarantees.
Absolutely. Human interactions are complex, and there's no magic formula for deciphering attraction. What's fascinating to me is how much we communicate without even realizing it.
It really is like a secret language.
Our bodies, gestures, even our gaze can convey so much information.
It is, often without us even being aware of it.
The more we understand this language, the more deeply we can connect with others and navigate relationships.
Exactly. It's like we've been given a decoder ring for human behavior.
But even with this new awareness, we shouldn't overanalyze every little thing.
Right. We don't want to turn into human lie detectors.
Sometimes a touch is just a touch, and a smile is just a smile.
It's about finding that balance, being observant, but also allowing for spontaneity and genuine connection.
And remembering that communication is a two-way street. It's not just about interpreting other people's signals, but also being aware of the signals we're sending out.
That's a really important point. Are we approachable? Are we respecting personal space? Are we engaging authentically? These are all things to consider.
This whole discussion has me thinking about how we're all part of this intricate dance of communication,
It is like a dance.
constantly sending and receiving messages, verbal and nonverbal. And the more aware we are of the steps, the more gracefully we can navigate it all.
What a beautiful way to put it. And remember, misinterpretations happen, so clear and open communication is always the best way to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Direct communication, a timeless and valuable tool. This deep dive has really given us a lot to think about. It's amazing how much communication happens beneath the surface, through those subtle glances, gestures, and touches.
It's an entire hidden language we're all speaking, often without realizing it. The more we understand it, the better we can connect with others and navigate the complexities of human relationships.
So as we go back out into the world with this newfound awareness, let's be mindful, respectful, and open to that subtle dance of connection happening all around us.
And remember, approaching these interactions with genuine curiosity, empathy, and a willingness to learn and grow is key.
Beautifully said. This has been an enlightening deep dive into the world of nonverbal communication. We've explored how those subtle cues can reveal a lot about attraction and connection, but always remembering to prioritize consent, respect, and open dialogue. Thanks for joining us. As we wrap up our deep dive into this article, one thing really sticks out to me.
What's that?
You can't really have a foolproof formula for figuring out someone's intentions just from their body language.
Yeah, that's true.
But, I mean, this whole exploration has been really eye-opening, hasn't it?
It has. It's like getting a sneak peek behind the curtain of how we interact, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, we've learned so much about those unspoken signals and how they affect our connections.
Absolutely.
We've talked about the possible meaning behind those little touches, glances, body language shifts.
Those subtle cues, yeah.
But as we've said all along, context matters.
It does.
And everyone's different. Plus, you have to consider cultural norms, too.
So true. What might seem like a sure sign of interest in one situation might mean nothing in another.
Exactly. And what's considered flirty in one culture might be totally off-putting in another.
Yeah, it's a delicate dance.
It really is.
Yeah.
It feels like you need awareness, sensitivity, and a good dose of intuition to navigate nonverbal communication.
You do. It's about being attuned to those cues, but also realizing there's no single right way to interpret them.
Exactly. It's different for everyone.
And, you know, while the article we've been looking at was all about romantic attraction, a lot of these principles apply to just about any interaction, don't they?
That's true. Friendships, work relationships, family dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
being mindful of those nonverbal cues can really make a difference.
Like-
This whole deep dive has really got me thinking, you know?
Yeah,
We communicate so much without even saying a word.
we do.
It's like there's this whole hidden level to our interactions.
A silent language that's always there, shaping how we see each other and connect.
Right. Our bodies, our gestures, even our eyes, they're all saying something.
And the more we understand that, the better we can navigate those complexities of human relationships.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
we've been given this secret decoder ring for human behavior.
Exactly.
But just like any powerful tool, we got to use this knowledge responsibly,
For sure.
always keeping respect, consent, and open communication front and center.
Those should be our guiding principles.
Because nonverbal cues can give us clues, but they don't tell the whole story.
Right. They shouldn't be the only thing we base our judgments or actions on.
And misinterpretations happen all the time.
They do.
Relying only on those subtle cues can lead to misunderstandings, or worse.
Which brings us back to the golden rule. When in doubt, ask.
Can't stress that enough. Clear and direct communication is the best way to be sure everyone's on the same page.
It prevents so much awkwardness.
Really does. And it's not just about understanding other people's signals, it's also about being aware of what we're putting out there ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. Like, are we approachable? Are we respecting personal space? Are we being genuine?
It's a two-way street, that's for sure.
It is.
We're sending and receiving signals constantly.
And being mindful of both sides of that can help us create better, more meaningful connections.
I love how you put it earlier about it being like a dance.
Oh, yeah.
We're all on this dance floor of human interaction,
Navigating the rhythm of those nonverbal cues, responding to each other's moves.
trying to find that harmony.
Exactly.
So as we go back out there with all these new insights, let's try to approach those interactions with curiosity and respect.
And openness, a willingness to learn and grow.
Well said. It's been awesome exploring all this with you.
It has.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into nonverbal communication and attraction. We've learned that those subtle cues can reveal a lot, but consent, respect, and open dialogue should always come first. Until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep those nonverbal cues flowing.